Well, Prince Louis' vision has emerged of him absolutely beaming.
The whole stately halls of Windsor Castle resounded with gasps when Prince Louis unexpectedly addressed Queen Camilla, his voice steady and his eyes blazing. No one in the palace was prepared for the shock and disbelief caused by the young royal's sudden challenge. Someone so young could not possibly talk with such rebellion. Rather than being a short-lived tantrum, this encounter revealed long-simmering animosity inside the royal family.
All the people that helped Camilla get the crown on her head were excluded from that coronation, and they were furious. And not only that, Kate and William were angry too.
The events surrounding Prince Louis and Camilla have sparked widespread speculation and left the royal family in disarray. We must first grasp the profound influence Camilla possesses within the royal family before delving into the passionate argument between Prince Louis and Queen Camilla. Although she is officially recognized as the Queen Consort to King Charles III, her responsibilities go much beyond that. Princess Charlotte, Prince George, and Camilla have all been raised by her step-grandchildren, Prince Louis, Prince George, and Princess Charlotte, respectively, within the royal gates. Insiders assert that her influence extends to their everyday lives, public conduct, and even the unwritten standards of royal propriety. Camilla has always been an ardent supporter of upholding the customs that characterize monarchy, even since she became a member of the royal family. Royal etiquette is an indestructible foundation of monarchical identity, in her view, rather than merely a series of rules. Camilla is steadfast in her belief that the young royals must be taught discipline, calmness, and restraint, in contrast to Prince William and Princess Kate, who have adopted a more contemporary and laid-back style of parenting. Subtle conflicts have arisen as a result of the different approaches to parenting, especially with Prince Louis, who has long been renowned for his energetic and carefree personality. Louis has had a harder time coping with these high expectations than his elder siblings, George and Charlotte. Louis frequently finds himself under more scrutiny than George and Charlotte, who both get organized supervision because to their status as future kings and are lauded for their collected attitude. When his enthusiasm threatens to derail the meticulously preserved royal image, Camilla gives him tougher corrections, according to several royal observers. Among the many 2022 royal events, one stood out as quite illuminating. Reportedly, Camilla demanded that Louis sit quietly and be collected the whole time the family attended the lengthy and solemn ceremony. While his elder siblings George and Charlotte were given more leeway to interact with the crowd or adjust their stance as needed, little Louis, who was brimming with activity, was required to remain motionless. The anticipation quickly grew intolerable for the youthful prince. As he fought to comply to the tight constraints put upon him as a toddler still developing his grasp of the world, observers saw how he fidgeted in his seat, his dissatisfaction becoming more apparent. The gulf between him and Camilla widened as a result of this unfair treatment. Slow but significant shifts in Louis's demeanor emerged as time progressed. He started to retreat, especially when Camilla was around, after being the most outgoing and carefree of the three siblings. His normally vivacious demeanor appeared to contract under the pressure of formality, and the mischievous glint in his eyes disappeared as soon as she was in the room. The decisions about the children's schooling, public personas, and even their mannerisms were all impacted by Camilla, and her influence didn't end at public occasions. Reports from within indicate that Louis had a more difficult time than his siblings did with these limitations, as he felt he had to continually rein in his impulses. Subtle but significant signs of this inner turmoil started to emerge as he became older. An eye roll at a formal engagement, a low sigh when admonished, or a noticeable change in demeanor when Camilla imposed her authority. These seemingly little events really show how a young prince is struggling to live up to the royal standards set for him. The struggle for Louis has never been about open rebellion, but rather a constant conflict between his carefree nature and the inflexible limitations placed on him. The issue that lingers, though, is how much longer Prince Louis can keep his baser inclinations in check until they explode. An unexpected twist occurs at this point. I know what you're thinking. How does this whole mess have anything to do with Prince Louis's birthday? Looks like you're going to find out soon. Prince Louis had fantasized of an extravagant party for what seemed like an eternity. In his imagination, the expansive grounds of Kensington Palace would be turned into a magical realm, a place where colorful clouds of balloons would float, fountains would sparkle in the sunlight, and the sound of laughing would reverberate among the old oak trees that had seen the birth of many royal children. In his mind, he ran amok among the roses, played tag with his relatives, and hid behind well-pruned hedges. Princess Charlotte would take charge of the smaller children's pastimes, while Prince George, ever the explorer, would squabble over who got to climb the highest tree. The garden had a mystical quality for Louis. The rose labyrinth could have been a dragon's lair, the fountain a wish well, and the majestic oak tree his very own castle. With growing anticipation, he would push his face against the window each morning to watch the groundskeepers get ready. Royal birthdays are more than simply a party with cake, balloons, and games. They are occasions to celebrate tradition, make a good impression, and live up to specific expectations. Queen Camilla has her own plans for the year's events. Like night and day, her intentions were completely at odds with Louis's aspirations. She had visions of posh rooms brimming with distinguished visitors, sparkling cutlery, and artfully designed flower arrangements. She had no interest in barefoot jogging on the grass. Dressed formally with bows perfected and talks kept under wraps, there will be no treasure hunts or butterfly chases. "A prince must learn proper decorum," she said to Catherine, Louis's mother, in a tone that was courteous but forceful, during an afternoon tea when the soft clinking of porcelain cups followed her comments. "The stateroom is the more appropriate location for a royal celebration. The garden isn't exactly fit for such an occasion." Those remarks really tipped Louis's world upside down. All of a sudden, his carefree fantasies of having fun in the great outdoors felt like little bubbles exploding one by one. Subtle cues, like his clenching grasp on hers and his fidgeting feet, led Catherine to recognize that he had fallen. Louis, who was both determined and devastated, said to his mother, "But Mommy, the garden has the butterfly bush, and James promised to bring his puppy." His little voice resounded in the big room, full with the innocent reasoning of a kid. Yes, that was his day. This is a day for joking and playing, not for sitting quietly under gloomy chandeliers and staring at serious paintings. But Camilla's plan proceeded as planned. Respectful welcomes, string quartets, and no space for the exuberant, disorderly pandemonium that Louis desired. "Duke Louis needs to work on his greeting skills, and the Archbishop will be present," Camilla wisely added. Catherine, caught between her royal duties and her maternal instincts to let her son be a child, clasped his hand. "Maybe we might take a look at his bow. It was rather exuberant the previous time." The stateroom's gilt mirrors and spotless floors reflected a chilly, distant memory of the day. What kind of place would Louis's cousins want to play? In what realms would they conceive and investigate? The light that swung so gracefully in the garden would be stifled by thick drapes. Similar to Louis's untamed nature, he twitched at his collar, his thoughts already struggling against the idea of being motionless and acting impeccably. In his own way, Louis was enjoying himself, but deep down he longed for a life of grass under his feet and excitement around every corner. The burden of royal expectations hung heavily over what was intended to be a birthday celebration for a 6-year-old. Queen Camilla had good intentions when she sought tradition and refinement, but she seems to have overlooked the core values of childhood: playfulness, spontaneity, and harmless mischief. And Louis wasn't your average kid. He was an inquisitive, energetic, and rambunctious little guy whose boundless imagination and infectious giggle could illuminate the most opulent of settings. It was unclear if the day belonged to the regimented routine of the royal family or to the free-spirited spirit of a young prince who was hell-bent on having his own celebration. A tense relationship between Prince Louis and Queen Camilla has been simmering for some time, and it's all down to their very divergent perspectives on upbringing and royal expectations. The tenets of an aristocratic upbringing, propriety, moderation, and a refined appearance, remain deeply ingrained in 76-year-old Camilla. But Louis is all young vigor and reckless energy. He frequently challenges Camilla's polished expectations of the royal family with his vibrant personality. A chain reaction of seemingly insignificant events has gradually revealed the complexities of their connection. Take the 2022 Sandringham family gathering as an example. Rumor has it that Camilla made a scene by publicly reprimanding Prince George for his poor table manners in front of the assembled guests. The weight of the formality caused Louis, who was observing from his seat, to squirm. These seemingly little moments have come to represent the wider divide between Camilla's need for propriety and Louis's free-spirited personality. At the coronation of King Charles III on May 6, 2023, at Westminster Abbey, Camilla's annoyance grew increasingly obvious. Camilla apparently thought Louis's yawns, playful grins, and energetic actions were cute, but everyone else did. Palace officials say she spoke out against the conduct, saying it was inappropriate for a royal kid to be acting that way on such a momentous day. As he whirled about in his seat and whispered to his siblings about his excitement, which was out of proportion to the grandeur happening around him, Louis failed to see the subtle critique. In private, these times built up. While the younger diners chuckled, Louis turned a formal supper at Balmoral Castle last fall into an unplanned game of hide-and-seek by ducking under the linen-draped tables. Camilla's expression turned disdainful as she maintained a cold, unflinching stare. Louis more recently supervised a group of youngsters as they made mud pies at a garden picnic in June 2023 at Buckingham Palace, removing their formal attire. The palace servants, including Camilla herself, looked at each other, some with a hint of amusement and others waiting for her response. Their conflict arises from a deep-seated difference in values on the nature of infancy, rather than being confined to specific instances. For Camilla, following royal procedure, learning one's position in society, and developing a sense of structure all occur throughout childhood. Louis remembers his youth filled with wonder, adventure, and the sparkle of unexpected moments. Everyday encounters highlight their gulf. Camilla prefers courteous nods, while Louis swoops in with sticky-fingered hugs. She advocates for quiet study, while he enjoys rowdy games of tag with Princess Charlotte. The funeral for Queen Elizabeth II in September 2022 was the site of one of the most tragic conflicts in recent history. Even though Louis was considered too little to attend, Camilla allegedly insisted that he not be seen at important occasions until he learned proper manners, even though he was only 4 years old. This attitude troubled Prince William and Catherine since it was crucial to include all of their children in royal traditions, imperfections, and all. The now famous argument over Louis's birthday party began when he sensed the tension and started expressing his thoughts more freely. Finding a middle ground between Camilla's rigid commitment to royal protocol and Louis's inconsolable dynamism has been difficult, despite William and Catherine's mediation efforts. Camilla, wife of Prince Charles, will be officially known as Queen Consort thanks to the approval of the British monarch. While some members of the palace staff secretly respect the young prince for his knack at defying Camilla's careful planning, others are concerned that their growing rift may be more difficult to overcome in the future. The intended celebration for Prince Louis's 6th birthday was to be a happy one full of family, mirth, and revelry. However, tensions had been building for a while under the surface. A seemingly ordinary family reunion took a surprising turn when Queen Camilla made a gesture that elicited a reaction nobody saw coming. The celebrations had been meticulously organized, with Prince William and Catherine making sure their youngest son's special day was absolutely enchanted. It was different in the room when Queen Camilla came up to the young prince to wish her well. Leaning down with a grin, she extended warm words of happiness, always keeping the poised grace required of a monarch. However, instead of reciprocating, Louis did something that caused a noticeable ripple in the group. He turned away from her. Everything was tense at that moment. Unsure of what to do, guests looked at each other. Constantly calm, Camilla waited, maybe anticipating his return. A look of disappointment crossed her face when he didn't, and all who were there could see it. She subtly but firmly persuaded him to turn around and recognize her as queen, refusing to allow the snub go unnoticed. Louis then turned to Princess Charlotte, his elder sister, and whispered the words that astonished everyone in the room. "I hate her." His anger was evident, but he was determined to get his point across. Even though he spoke with a child's voice, the words, "She's not my queen," were imperceptible. There was complete quiet after the room had been rocking with revelry and conversation. People who overheard Louis's declaration were taken aback by the intensity of his feelings. The statement was full of passion, fury, and maybe even pain, the kind of raw honesty that only a youngster could say without thinking twice. It wasn't simply a casual comment either. It was clearly a challenging moment for Camilla. Those familiar with her noticed a tiny break in her normally regal expression, a flash of unease, a tightening of her lips, a glance aside, as if she needed a minute to absorb what had just happened. But she still managed to keep her customary air of superiority. That was an important and unusual time. Tragic palace news broke shortly after. "This is sad news. Prince Philip has died at the age of 99, bringing to light the long-simmering animosity between the monarch and the youthful prince." Prince William and Catherine wasted no time getting to the bottom of Louis's simmering feelings. Rather than pressuring him into an awkward confrontation, they quietly escorted him outdoors to relieve some of the pent-up stress. Later that night, when the official birthday pictures were shared with the world, Louis was seen curled up on a blanket, grinning broadly for the camera. From the outside looking in, it appeared to be a picture of a joyful boy celebrating his big day. However, for those who knew what had happened earlier, the stark contrast stood out. A conflagration of assumptions and arguments broke out as soon as word of the occurrence spread. Others viewed it as a symbol of the monarchy's continuous battle between preserving tradition and adapting to modern expectations, while some took Louis's side, thinking that his reaction reflected deeper sentiments of resentment or discomfort toward Camilla's role in the family. For a long time, Camilla, a figure steeped in the traditions and norms of a bygone royal age, strove to manage the demands of her roles as queen consort and step-grandmother to the children of William and Harry. A lot of people felt sorry for her because they thought the whole thing was just a kid acting out a serious family moment that got out of hand. Nevertheless, there were those who perceived a deeper meaning in the young prince's remarks, a raw look at the hidden feelings that accompany royal life. Despite his youth, Prince Louis had ignited a discourse that extended well beyond the palace walls, a royal compromise that united old traditions with fresh beginnings, and the importance of the event was hotly debated. There was a lot of joy and celebration at Windsor Castle for Prince Louis's 6th birthday, but there was also some underlying tension. Earlier in the day, the royal family was upset due to an awkward incident involving little Louis and Queen Camilla. In an effort to alleviate his son's distress, Prince William went down by his side and spoke comforting words. He used the metaphor of a giant tree to describe tradition, noting that it has deep historical roots but also branches that might stretch into the future. As he stood up to confront Camilla, Louis relaxed his tight stance and listened intently. William suggested a compromise that would bring royal tradition and children's delight together. The tea ceremony would be kept but condensed. The string quartet, a representation of regal grace, would play a medley of classical music and Louis's beloved Disney tunes. And the garden party, which had been organized in a more regimented and serious fashion, but would now incorporate outdoor play and games. The attentive Queen Camilla listened intently. Her normally composed demeanor relaxed as she looked up at Louis's flushed cheeks. She gave William the silent nod that said she understood his point of view and was willing to compromise when he proposed taking the party activities outdoors. Maybe she could see a parallel of her own path to royal approval in Louis's defiance. Staff members of the palace exchanged relieved looks as they prepared for a day marred by strife. The head butler, who had been with the royal family for 3 decades, couldn't help but comment on the exquisite diplomacy he had just observed. In their quiet approval, even the majestic images that adorned Windsor's walls appeared to embrace this fusion of the ancient and the modern. The royal chef came up with a meal that featured delicate pastries and beautiful cupcakes, while the head gardener drew out play areas that were safe for the children. In order to strike a good balance between planned activities and unplanned joy, the master of ceremonies collaborated with the babysitter. For a brief second, the senior staff was taken aback when Camilla proposed outdoor painting classes for the kids. The modifications were welcomed by Louis with open arms. He practiced his bow with an expression of seriousness, yet he couldn't help but laugh every so often. Official birthday images showed Louis smiling beneath Windsor's blossoming trees, but Camilla, who was previously a stickler for etiquette, decided to ignore the humorous outbursts. Louis enthusiastically showed Camilla his hidden garden hideouts, while Camilla pointed out old pictures, revealing a newfound bond during quiet moments. A subtle but important shift happened in those little encounters, proving that tradition and change could coexist in peace even within royal walls. Could the palace have just witnessed the first sight of a little boy who refused to be molded by tradition? Or would this incident be written off as a tantrum? As if waiting for the answer to be revealed by time, the majestic halls appeared to hold their breath. With new eyes, Camilla studied Prince Louis, and she saw in his rebellious countenance the echoes of previous monarchs whose stubborn wills transformed the institution of monarchy. During their tea, she observed his resolute expression and wondered whether she had misjudged the force of his will as much as his determination. Little by little, the Queen's stance changed. She began to gently bend rather than break traditions. Something had changed, even though proper behavior was still required, even when finger painting, and timetables now included opportunities for creativity. From across the room, Camilla could see Louis's playful look at formal gatherings, lively, obstinate, and brimming with fire. That was Prince Louis, as always. Where earlier generations had spoken in hushed tones, his laughter resounded through the halls. Pristine lawns became amusement parks and cabins into fantasy worlds under his wing. But behind his limitless vitality, something fresh materialized. A shared comprehension between him and Camilla, an unspoken recognition that none of them had anticipated. As his defiance rocked the royal traditions, his siblings Prince George and Princess Charlotte observed with interest. The sound of unbridled laughing warmed even the castle walls, which had before observed meticulous rehearsal. Maybe Louis embodied the same guiding spirit that had helped Camilla endure her own challenging royal path. Maybe, unlike others, she sensed promise in his defiance. Royal procedure and childlike fun were skillfully balanced during the birthday celebrations, which went on as planned. Battles in the palace, however, never ceased. They just dipped for a while before rising again. While maintaining royal traditions while raising children in the modern world will always be difficult, a fundamental dynamic had changed. Few ventured to do what Prince Louis had done. He had confronted Camilla in an unpolished and uncalculated manner. He achieved what diplomacy frequently fails to do. He broke the shell of strict tradition with his naked, unfiltered resistance rather than with polished statements. Do you see the makings of a future leader here? Or just the carefree energy of a young person? Somewhere between the spotless chambers and the muddy garden, the answer remained elusive as the sun sank, throwing long shadows through the great windows. Louis had earlier executed a flawless bow, though onlookers may have detected a hint of mischief in his gaze. The string quartet's performance of Let It Go brought tears to the royal family's eyes, even though they also played music by Bach and Beethoven. Suddenly, the poised Camilla briefly relaxed her rules, which was completely out of character. When her hat fell during a game of tag, she participated in the fun and laughed heartily with the kids. The duration of this fragile moment was uncertain, but Prince Louis had signaled his presence, and the palace, which was deeply entrenched in tradition, would never forget it. Indeed, the unwavering cry of a child can sometimes be the seed that grows into a tree of everlasting transformation. Did you really think that Camilla might be swayed by Prince Louis's act of defiance? Is it possible to alter royal customs, including humor? Would his uprising change the course of the monarchy? Leave a comment with your opinions. Additionally, please subscribe and like the video.